please, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself, tell me, where you're at right now, where you grew up, and kind of your background. Like I said, I always like to hear the origin story of how people got into entrepreneurship, and I find that everybody has a very different answer and a very different journey. So please take it away.
Okay, so first off, I'd like to start by saying thank you for having me, Grant. I don't take any opportunity, regardless of how, who's involved. I don't take any opportunity for granted. So I appreciate your reaching out, and I like the fact that we're doing this today. So thanks once more. Why did I get into entrepreneurship? Why did I become an entrepreneur? I guess I was always going to be an engineer. I had wanted to be an engineer from childhood. I love to build things, but I had a background. I had a very unfortunate background, where I lost my dad when I was barely 4, and so growing up between me and my siblings was a bit difficult because my mom had to take care of us, but again because she was not very well-to-do, right? We had to depend on support from lots of family members, and we had to, So, growing up, when I got into after my secondary school, I had to live with my pastor at the time, and at that point, I got exposed to reading magazines, right? And so I would read a lot of foreign magazines, okay? And I got addicted to going to the newsstands to read magazines. Just basically take those magazines, flip them, read through them, right? At some point, I graduated to buying old copies of the magazines, so I can digest them at home, right? And the one thing stuck out to me, there was this particular magazine, I think it was the Fortune magazine. This was sometime in 1996, thereabout, 1996, 1997, right? I got this Fortune magazine. I believe it was Fortune, and I saw an interview of a young German boy at the time who was into entrepreneurship, and what he does was basically going to the Middle East or to the East, mostly China, to buy some products and bring them back to Europe and sell them, right? And he became successful doing that. And I can't remember his name today, but he was a young boy. He wasn't 20 at the time. He was a teenager. But with the support of his parents and the rest of guys around him, he became successful doing that business, right? I was inspired, okay? But it sparked a lot around me that I could do business, right? And I could build a business just like those guys, right? And so, just around that same time, there's a guy called Hakim Bello Asage. He was 27 at the time. I think he was 27 at the time. He was able to buy one of the major banks in the country, right? At 27. So he was able to buy UBA Bank. UBA was one of the banks that we grew up as a child. I grew up knowing UBA as one of the major financial institutions in the country. And this 27-year-old guy just bought that bank, right? And you know, it was for me amazing, right? The 27-year-old guy is now the CEO of a major financial institution. And it looks like, wow, okay, so this is actually possible. And so it lit 1,000 light bulbs in my head, right? And I think I would say that entrepreneurship seeds became more pronounced because, of course, yes, I come from the East. In Nigeria, we have the Igbos, right? And I'm an Igbo, and generally, Igbos are presumed to be naturally entrepreneurs, right? So, and I've done a couple of entrepreneurship things from my childhood, but I mean, all of those corporate level entrepreneurship stuff did not, they became clearer. I think it sowed some seed of audaciousness in me, right? From at that point, because it became clearer to me that, you know what, I can actually do this, right? And so I think from there, my trajectory changed because I started trying to build businesses. First, I became a publisher, trying to publish, some call it newsletters at the time. Today people do newsletters via emails, right? Then we would do newsletters and print it and distribute it. So I started doing that, okay? And so I think for me, that would be the beginning point of my taking the step of getting into entrepreneurship.
I like it. So you saw two different great examples, one from Germany, one from Nigeria of, well, they did it. Why can't I do it? And so it kind of gave you the inspiration. I love how you said 1,000 light bulbs went off. And then you started your own publishing business, which, it is funny because, yeah, you're right. Newsletters now are all digital. But back in the day, they used to be all physical print. So you're physically printing newspaper, like piece of paper, and sending them out as newsletters and sharing those. So great start into entrepreneurship. So that kind of takes me into the segue of talk to me about SSE Angel Network. How did that start? Where are you located? And kind of some of the good work you've done with it recently.
The question you asked about SSE Angel, right?
Yeah. How did it start? And then what's the mission of it?
Yes, so the mission, I start with the mission, then I get to how it started, right? The mission of SSE Angels, essentially, is to find and fund innovators building high-skill ventures, in the south and the southeast of Nigeria. That is a mission of Sean, for short. We call it Sean. SSE Angels is Sean, the acronym, right? Now, that's the mission, but how did it start? SSE Angels started because I won another organization called Startup South. Okay, Startup South is both an organization and a community. As an organization, we are interested, we're focused on making the South and the southeast of Nigeria the digital economic hub of the country, right? So we engage in advocacy, we engage in training, and we engage in conferences just to make sure, of course, provide support for the founders within the region. Now, the south and southeast of Nigeria is comprised of about 60 million people in terms of population. I'm sure you know that there are so many states, there are so many countries across Europe that are not up to 5 million people, right? And so you can imagine a place where you have 60 million people within a country, right? So So our goal was basically to make it possible for people to try building high-scale ventures within the region. What you had in the past was that talented people get to migrate out of the region because of lack of support, right? And so that's why we started startups about 10 years ago, okay? So as part of our ecosystem building program, it became necessary that we needed to find we needed to answer the funding question, because we're asking people to build, not to leave, to stay back and build. But a lot of them needed funding, and there was no funding. The VCs were not interested. Of course, they would want to focus on places where it is easy for them to get access to, pipelines, investment pipelines. Because of course, if everybody is migrating to a particular place, there is no incentive for them to want to come down to where people are migrating out of, right? So we needed to answer that funding question. That is why the solution was for us to start an angel network. So with the support of my mentor, Tony Davis, and the rest other people, we started the angel network. And currently there are over 42 members, and we've written over $500,000 check in about 16 startups, right? And we're still growing.
I just want to make sure I got this right. You said there were 42 investors?
42 investors, yeah.
In 16 startups.
We've written $500,000 check in 16 startups.
That's awesome. Before we continue on, I just want to say that's amazing. So great job on that. 500,000 is no joke. That's awesome. Where do these investors come from? Are they from Nigeria? Are they from other African countries? Are they from Europe? Where are you finding these investors from?
Incidentally, I think there are two of our members that are actually American citizens, US, not African, they are, white American citizens, right? Two of our members are white American citizens. But the rest of them are Nigerians. A lot of them are connected to the region. The thing with the region is that it has the carbon capital for the country. Nigeria's oil and gas. Nigeria is a country that is heavily dependent on oil and gas for economics, right? And this oil and gas is actually extracted from this region, right? So ideally, we will expect that there should be a lot of innovation, technology-wise, around energy and drilling within the region, okay? But that's not happening, okay? That's not happening. But there are lots of people working in the oil and gas who are attracted, to being part of the tech revolution happening across Nigeria, and they find the opportunity to be in the angel network. They find an opportunity to participate through the angel network, and that's what we are doing, right? So most of them are basically people who are connected here one way or the other. They're not necessarily from the region, but they are connected one way or the other. And then there are people who, by sheer interest and connection to me, like the Americans I talked about, they are part of the network, right? We just feel we're connected. We want to be part of the network. Yeah.
Nice. That's great news. Of the 16 startups that you invested in, what sectors were they in? Were they in agriculture tech? Were they in energy tech?
So they spread across different sectors, right? There's agriculture, there's Fintech, there is energy, there's energy, there's Fintech, there's agriculture, there's even logistics, right? So there are lots of different sectors that invested in, because the network is actually sector agnostic. So.
Nice. And are most of them staying in Nigeria, or have they expanded beyond, or what's it looking like for those 16?
So quite a lot of them are Nigerian based, right? And I have to mention here that as part of ways to keep the network engaged, some of those startups are actually not based in the region, right? Some of them are actually global companies today. It is expanded outside of Nigeria, So, yeah.
That's awesome. That's great news because, like you said earlier, those examples that you saw that inspired you that I can do this. Now those startups that started in Nigeria, built in Nigeria, got funded in Nigeria, and are now expanding globally. Now they're inspiring the next generation of startup founders, just like you, and the cycle continues and grows bigger and bigger. So that's great work, and it's awesome to see your work is paying off like that and helping to inspire so many others. So perfect. We could keep talking about SSE Angel Network all day, and I'd love to dive into the deeps, but if you could please send me some information about those startups later, I'd love to include it in here and help promote them, and talk more about the good work y'all have done. Tell me more about Rebel Seed Capital. How did that start, and what's the mission of that?
Okay, so Rebel Seed is so when we started the Angel Network, right? What we found was that there were lots of we had a process. We had a process in the Angel Network. One of that process is we don't get into a deal until we hit a minimum threshold, right? And that threshold is actually $10,000. Okay, and because we are not a fund, the network is not a fund, right? It operates more like a collective than a fund. So typically, what happens is when there is a deal, we get people to look at the deal and review the deal, and those who are interested in the deal will go forward with the deal, right? That's how we operate. And so what that means is that when the deal comes, and people, and of course these are people writing small checks, not like they're not right, it's an aggregation of small checks that gives us our numbers, okay? So the implication is that when there's a deal and you don't have enough interest in that deal, right? We tend to pass those deals, right? Sometimes those deals are good. Sometimes those deals actually need us to support them, to back them, right? But we cannot because we don't have enough interest within the network. So, and then so we have had to, pass on some deals in that manner, right? And I took a look at it, and again, what I noticed that aside from the fact that the goal of the network was basically to get people to write small checks that they can afford to lose, right? I noticed that people were more interested in writing bigger checks, okay? And because of that, the scrutiny threshold was higher, right? They were more willing to utilize deals more in depth and more intently, which is not bad, right? I mean, but some of the people we're supposed to invest in are actually supposed to be sometimes early revenue or even pre-revenue, right? So there are lots of scrutinies that they will not pass, right? Mm-hmm. So we started looking at what can we do, to ensure that the best of those deals still get support, right? A partner, my friend, my partner and I decided that the best thing to do was to start a VC fund, okay? So we started a VC fund. First, I had to apply to join the VC Lab team. I participated in the VC Lab. Adele Resi, right? So founder institute. So I think I was cohort 6 of the VC Lab program. Either cohort 5 or cohort 6, I can't remember. But I had to do that in order to get the understanding of what it takes to build a VC fund and a VC firm, right? Of course, because it's hands-on, we started our fund immediately we finished from the school, right? And our fund basically is to invest in founders, invest in startups across Africa's secondary cities. Okay, we say secondary cities because that resonates and aligns with the kind of geographies that that we're very much attuned and understand very much. Those places where you do not have VC firms or established VC firms, present. Those are the places where we want to go to because we tend to understand the founders there. We understand the challenges they're going through. We understand how to support them.
I'll make sure I got this right. So the SSE Angel Network, you've written 16 checks for $500,000, but because you had these stipulations of, you have to make at least $10,000 and this, so you have a lot of rules for it, you couldn't really aim at the startups that were a little bit further, like just starting or further behind, that needed a little bit of help at the earlier stages. Like you said, you had to give up a lot of good deals that could have been something, but they weren't at that $500,000 stage, right? So you created Rebel Seed specifically to help write these $10,000 to $50,000 checks for these very early stage guys who just need a little bit of help to get going, right?
Yes, and so sometimes the startups that we back are not necessarily pre-revenue, right? It's just that sometimes a lot of the members really understand the sector, and of course, we will not go into one of the things we tell angels is don't invest in sectors you don't understand, right? So because they do understand the sector, they were right to pass those deals, right? But from where I stand, some of those deals, some of the deals that can potentially create heavy impact and make money for the investors, okay? But because, so we want to be able to not lose so many of those deals if we get the opportunity. And that's why we started it also.
Makes sense to me. Perfect. Well, I always like to wrap up on this final question of if you have any like early stage advice. I know you're working with these very early stage founders, some pre-revenue, some just got their first revenue. So what's the advice you would like to give for any first time or early stage founder?
I would typically want to advise founders in secondary cities, right? Because that's my audience. Those are people that I speak to a lot, right? One of the things I typically tell them is, number one, don't despair. Make sure that you are convinced enough, right? But not just a conviction. Make sure that you validate what you're doing. Make sure that you have validated what you're doing and it makes sense and you can see the numbers, right? You can see the numbers, and by numbers I mean the market, okay? Be laser intent and focused on your customers, okay? Every other thing will fall in place. That's basically what I say to them. Every other thing will fall in place. Chasing funding, ahead of this other thing will only frustrate you, okay? But if you do these other things, you will get funded. And of course, Rebel Seed Capital will always be there and to back you. It doesn't matter which African country where you are, as long as we're in the secondary city, we want to be able to reach out and support. Okay, but of course, if you're in the south and southeast of Nigeria, then south.
Hello? I think we cut out for a sec. Can you hear me? Oh, there you are. Perfect.
That's interesting. So that's one of the challenges we have around here, right? Yeah. So most importantly, I will always tell them, don't work in silos. Try to connect. There are communities, right? The Startup Chat community is there. Try to connect. You want to join the Startup Chat community, it's simple. Just go to the bit.ly/join-exclusive and fill out the form, join the Slack, join the WhatsApp, the WhatsApp group, and begin to connect. Don't work in silo. Don't try to isolate yourself, because communities, building product, feels a lot better when you do it in a community. Okay, you do, because you get support. So that's basically my advice. Don't work in silos. Join communities. There are different communities. Join up the communities and try to get the support that you need when you need it.
That's 3 great pieces of advice. You said, have conviction of what you're doing, talk to your customers, don't work in a silo, join your community. That is 3 great pieces of advice that I would also double recommend to every first-time founder. Well, perfect. Thank you so much for your time today. Is there anywhere that people can follow SSE Angel Network, Rebel Seed Capital, or find out more about it?
Yeah, you can always check us out on LinkedIn, on social media. SSE Angels is the handle for Sean. Rebel SC is the handle for Rebel Seed Capital. And of course, you can also follow me on LinkedIn, Uche Aniche. But most importantly, I think I want to mention the fact that in October, every year we convene people in Port Harcourt, Nigeria. It's an opportunity for people to, come feel our ecosystem. It's usually one of the biggest startup conference this side of Nigeria. So if you want to come around, the tickets is going to go on sale shortly. Maybe by the time this is ready, the tickets will be out there, and you can sign up. If you need, visa to come to Nigeria, we would help you process the visa to come to Nigeria and visit Port Harcourt for the conference early October, 2nd and 3rd of October. I'd like to invite everyone listening to me to join us at Startup South, this year, Startup South 10.
Nice. Awesome. I will put the links for both of those LinkedIn pages, your LinkedIn page, and then whenever the tickets come out for it, I'll put that link in here as well. So perfect. Uche, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it.